1 week after our divorce, my ex-husband married the perfect woman he had always dreamed of. But when I saw her face, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. The grand ballroom of the five-star hotel glittered under crystal chandeliers. Melodious music mingled with the clinking of glasses and the cheerful hum of celebratory toasts. The entire space was adorned with thousands of imported white roses, the symbol of purity and eternal love. I stood in a hidden corner near the gift table, my eyes scanning the opulent scene. It was exactly 1 week ago that Kevin and I had walked out of the county courthouse with our divorce decree in hand. He said we were incompatible. His father had passed away from illness years ago, leaving all family power in the hands of his mother, Beatrice. She constantly berated me, calling me a useless hen who couldn't lay eggs, a mere nurse whose working-class status tarnished their family's reputation. Today, Kevin was marrying a new woman, introduced as the high society daughter of a tycoon, a recent Ivy League graduate, a perfect match in every way. I didn't come here to cause a scene or to beg him back. I came to see what this so-called high society perfection actually looked like. I wore a simple white blouse, the collar slightly frayed, and a pair of plain black trousers. On my feet were a pair of cheap white nursing shoes I'd bought for $20. These shoes had carried me down countless hospital corridors over the years. They had helped me bear the weight of my own mother's medical bills. They had helped me carry the hope of a peaceful family with Kevin. Amidst a sea of shimmering evening gowns and expensive, tailor-made suits, I was a jarring stain on the plush red carpet. A sharp, tinkling laugh cut through my thoughts. Mila, Kevin's precious younger sister, approached me in a silk dress with a high slit, a glass of dark red wine in her hand. Trailing her were a few of his relatives, the same people I had spent 3 years waiting on hand and foot. Well, well, look what the cat dragged in. What are you doing here? Mila's voice was laced with mockery, her sharp eyes scanning me from head to toe, lingering on my shoes. My brother's wedding is for distinguished guests only. Aren't you afraid of dirtying the hotel carpet with those pathetic shoes? Or did you come here begging for a free meal? A few whispers erupted from the people standing nearby. They pointed and snickered. Talk about trash trying to climb the social ladder. A distant aunt sneered. 3 years in the Harrison family, living in luxury, and still nothing to show for it. Couldn't even produce a child, and so proud of her menial job changing bedpans. Getting kicked out with nothing serves her right. I stood tall and looked directly at Mila. I came with an invitation that your brother personally sent to the hospital. I replied coolly. If my presence offends the carpet, you can have security throw me out. But I suspect your brother wants me here to witness his happiness. Just then, Kevin appeared through the crowd. He wore an elegant white tuxedo, his hair slicked back with gel, his face glowing with triumph. He looked down his nose at me, his voice dripping with false pity. Clara? You actually came? I thought you'd be too ashamed, crying in your little studio apartment. Still, you did work hard for my family for 3 years. Today, I'm marrying Veronica, a perfect woman from a perfect family. I wanted you to see this, so you'd understand that people stick to their own kind. Don't be bitter. Have a drink, eat something, and then go. I looked at the man I once called my husband, the man whose wedding gift money I had used for my mother's treatment, the man whose mother's constant verbal abuse I had endured. My heart felt nothing. No pain, no sorrow. It was cold and hard. I gave a faint, empty smile. Congratulations, Kevin. I'm very curious to see your perfect woman. I hope she's as flawless as you seem to believe. Kevin snorted, about to say something else, but the music suddenly changed. The MC on stage announced that the most important moment had arrived. Kevin quickly turned and walked to the floral arch to await his bride. The crowd parted, creating an aisle of white roses leading from the main entrance. The spotlight focused on the grand doors. As they slowly swung open, a brilliant beam of light flooded the red-carpeted aisle. The bride appeared in a wedding gown adorned with thousands of sparkling crystals, a diamond tiara on her head. Her exquisitely made-up face was veiled, her every movement exuding the grace of a high-born lady. Kevin stood on the stage, his eyes filled with adoration, a proud smile blooming on his lips. The guests erupted in applause, their murmurs of admiration for the bride's beauty filling the air. The bride walked slowly to the center of the hall. Her father figure stepped forward and lifted the veil, revealing a delicate face, a high, slender nose, large, double-lidded eyes, and a perfectly sculpted jawline. It was a flawless face, the perfect product of modern cosmetic surgery. I stood in the crowd, staring at that face. At first, there was a flicker of vague recognition, then utter shock, and finally, a loud laugh erupted from my throat. It started small but grew louder, echoing through the now silent ballroom. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Everyone turned to stare at me as if I were a madwoman. Kevin's brow furrowed in anger. Mila gritted her teeth, about to march over and yell at me, but I didn't care. I pushed through the crowd and walked onto the red-carpeted aisle, directly facing the stunned bride. When her eyes met mine, they widened in panic, her false eyelashes trembling. I took a deep breath. "Hello, Heather," I said, enunciating each word. "It's been a long time. The makeup and the plastic surgery. I almost didn't recognize you." The hall was dead silent. Kevin rushed down from the stage, shouting, "Are you insane, Clara? This is Veronica, the only daughter of the Bridgerton Textiles empire. This is my wife. What nonsense are you talking about? Security, get her out of here." I held up a hand to stop the approaching guards. With the other, I pulled a faded, yellowed photograph from my pocket. I held it up for everyone to see. In the picture, I was wearing my nurse's uniform, standing next to a skinny, sallow-skinned girl with crooked teeth, a flat nose, and small, insecure eyes. "Everyone, take a good look," I announced. "This perfect high-society woman is actually named Heather. She was a poor girl from a rural town who came to the city 5 years ago for treatment for a stomach ulcer. At the time, she was penniless, held at the hospital because she couldn't pay her bill. I was just a nursing intern then. I used my meager salary to pay off her $1,200 debt and bought her meals for a month." I turned to the bride, whose face was now deathly pale. "I have to admit, your plastic surgeon did an excellent job. They reshaped your jaw, built you a new nose, gave you new eyelids, completely altered your bone structure. The hundreds of thousands of dollars you spent must have been painful. But Heather, no scalpel can carve away a poor character or a thankless heart. Since we're here, how about you pay me back the $1,200 you owe me?" Veronica, or Heather, staggered back, her whole body trembling. "You're slandering me," she stammered, her voice betraying her terror. "I don't know you. I'm Veronica. Someone get this crazy woman out of here. Kevin, protect me." Kevin looked from the photo in my hand to his wife's face. The resemblance in the eyes, the way she blinked when she lied, it made him hesitate. But with hundreds of guests watching, he couldn't accept this humiliating truth. He pointed at me, his voice shaking with rage. "Clara, are you so jealous that you'd forge a photo to ruin my wedding? You venomous snake." I smirked and tossed the photo at his chest. "Take it to an expert. See if it's real or fake. As for you, Heather, I don't care that you tricked the Harrison family. I just want my money back. Pay up." The public humiliation caused Veronica to lose control. The vulgar nature, hidden beneath her polished exterior, erupted. She hissed a curse and raised her hand to slap me. "You bitch! I'll kill you!" she shrieked. I stood my ground, ready to take the slap to escalate the situation. But before her hand could reach my cheek, it was caught in a powerful grip. A large, strong man's hand clamped around her wrist and flung her backward. She stumbled, nearly falling, catching herself on the floral arch. Kevin rushed to her side. A deep, commanding voice spoke from beside me. "To resort to violence in a public place, it seems the title of socialite is quite meaningless." I turned my head. A tall man in a flawlessly tailored black suit stood there. His face was sharp and angular, with deep, piercing eyes. He exuded an aura of cold, supreme authority that instantly dominated everyone in the room. The hall erupted in whispers, but this time, they weren't about me. "Oh my God, isn't that Alexander Sterling, the chairman of Sterling Industries? What is he doing here? Sterling and Harrison Holdings have been bitter rivals for years. Is he here to crash the wedding?" Kevin let go of Veronica and stepped forward. His face was pale, but he tried to sound brave. "Mr. Sterling, What is the meaning of this? Today is a joyous occasion for my family. You weren't invited. How dare you barge in and assault my wife? Are you declaring war? Alexander Sterling put one hand in his pocket and sneered. A joyous occasion? It looks more like a cheap melodrama to me. And you, Kevin, you call yourself an elite, yet you let a woman with a plastic face lead you around by the nose. I'm not here for your trashy wedding. I'm here to pick someone up. He turned to me. His gaze, which had been icy just a moment before, softened into a warmth that stunned me. He reached out and took my cold hand. Clara, let's go. The air in here is polluted. It's not suitable for you. I was frozen. I didn't know this powerful man at all. How did he know my name? Why was he defending me in front of the media and all of Los Angeles's most powerful families? But his grip was so firm, so steady, it sent a strange sense of security through me. Kevin's eyes bulged, the veins on his forehead throbbing with rage. Clara, what is your relationship with him? So, for the past 3 years while you were a Harrison, you were secretly plotting with our family's enemy behind my back. You disgusting, cheating whore. Alexander stopped and turned. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes, making Kevin instinctively shrink back. Watch your mouth, Harrison. Clara is a woman I respect and cherish. Your failure to appreciate her is the greatest mistake of your life. From this day forward, if anyone from your family so much as touches a hair on her head, I will level your pathetic corporation. With that, he took my hand and led me down the red-carpeted aisle, straight out the main doors. Behind us, Veronica's screams, Beatrice's curses, and the chaotic murmurs of the guests blended into a cacophony. I ignored it all, walking away under the protection of this stranger, my mind filled with 1,000 questions. Inside the luxurious sedan, the city lights of Los Angeles blurred past in silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning. Alexander sat beside me, having loosened his tie. The cold, intimidating aura he projected at the wedding was gone, replaced by a quiet, almost weary calm. I pulled my hand back, creating a safe distance between us, and cleared my throat. Thank you for helping me back there, but I don't have any money to pay you for your performance. And how do you know my name? Do we know each other? He turned to me, a gentle smile playing on his lips. He looked intently into my eyes, his voice a low, warm timbre. You really don't recognize me, do you? Clara, the nursing intern from the oncology ward, all those years ago. Look closely. I frowned, searching my memory. The oncology ward. That was 10 years ago, when I was a fresh-faced student on my first clinical rotation. The work was all-consuming. Cleaning, changing dressings, feeding terminally ill patients. I tried to reconcile the powerful, handsome face of the man before me with the gaunt, suffering patients of my past. But it was impossible. I'm sorry, I said honestly. I've cared for so many patients over the last decade, I can't remember everyone. He sighed softly, his eyes clouded with a deep sense of nostalgia. 10 years ago, there was a two-year-old kid with late-stage leukemia. He was bone-thin, his head was shaved, and he was rude and hostile because he thought he was going to die. He'd throw his food trays and curse at the nurses. Everyone avoided him, except for one little nursing intern. Every night she was on duty. She'd bring him a bowl of homemade chicken noodle soup. She would patiently clean up the messes he made and hold his hand, telling him fairy tales to ease the pain of his bone marrow treatments. She called him Alex. He paused. That young man was me. My heart skipped a beat. Alex? The angry, bald, sallow-faced young man named Alex? My eyes widened as I stared at the powerful man beside me. How was it possible? The doctors had said he wouldn't survive the winter. Is it really you? I asked, my voice trembling. You're alive. Your cancer, it's completely gone. They sent me to a specialist facility in Boston for a new treatment the next month. I survived, Alexander interrupted me, his hand unconsciously reaching up to gently brush a stray hair from my forehead. I've been looking for you for 10 years, Clara. The first thing I did when I took over my family's company was search every hospital database for you. But by the time I found you, you were marrying Kevin Harrison. Do you have any idea how much it hurt to watch you walk down the aisle with him? I lowered my head, a lump forming in my throat. 10 years ago, my simple, naive words of comfort had planted such a deep seed in his heart. And I had just wasted 3 years of my life in a cold, loveless marriage. "So why did you come to the wedding today?" I asked. "This is my mess. I don't want to be involved in the feud between your families. I couldn't just sit by and watch the woman I love be trampled on by that garbage," Alexander said, his voice firm. "My presence today was to let all of Los Angeles know that you are not alone. I was too late 3 years ago, and I let you suffer. From now on, I will never let anyone bully you again." The car pulled up to the curb of a narrow alley, leading to my run-down apartment complex. I opened the door and turned back to him. "Thank you for your feelings, but I've just been through a divorce. I'm not in any state to think about romance. Please just consider what happened back then a coincidence." "Excuse me." I hurried into the dark alley, leaving him watching me under the dim, yellow glow of a streetlight. I returned to my cramped room and collapsed onto the stiff, single bed. So much had happened today. My head was spinning. The confrontation with Veronica, Alexander's sudden protection, and his true identity, it all felt like some wild, impossible dream. Before I could even drift off, my phone buzzed violently. It was an unknown number. I answered. All I could hear on the other end was the frantic, insane screaming of Kevin. "You bitch! Are you happy now? You provoked Veronica so much she fainted at the wedding. There was blood everywhere. The doctor said she had a miscarriage. My son, my heir, is gone. You'll pay for my son's life. I'm sending people to your place right now. I'm going to kill you." I shot up, a cold sweat breaking out on my back. Pregnant? A miscarriage? It was impossible. When I exposed her, she was just panicked. There was no way she could have fainted and miscarried from that. This had to be a setup, a twisted play to cover up her past and her lies. 15 minutes later, heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway. My door was kicked open. Kevin stormed in with 5 burly security guards. His clothes were disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a rabid animal. "Get her," he ordered. "Break her legs and drag her to Veronica to beg for forgiveness." 2 of the men lunged at me. I quickly grabbed a small paring knife from the counter and pointed it at them. "Stay back. One more step and I call the police." "Kevin, do you think I'm afraid of you?" "Go ahead, call them." Kevin spat on the floor. "Let them arrest a murderer like you. You couldn't have a child, so you got jealous of Veronica. You used a cheap, fake photo to slander her, and it killed my unborn son. You will pay." I let out a cold laugh. I put the knife down and calmly reached for my phone. "Kevin, you truly are the most foolish man I have ever met. You say I faked a photo to slander your wife? Then take a good look at this one, and let's see if that baby was even yours to begin with." I unlocked the screen and tossed the phone at him. He caught it and stared. It was a photo I had happened to snap a month earlier when I was at a pharmacy near a luxury hotel. In the picture, Veronica was wearing a tight dress, wrapped in the arms of a portly, bald man. They were kissing passionately right in front of the hotel entrance. At that time, Kevin and Veronica were in the midst of their whirlwind romance, pushing for my divorce. "Look at the timestamp on that photo, Kevin," I said, my voice ringing with authority. "It was taken just 1 month ago. How far along was she? Did you even get a DNA test before you started claiming that child as a Harrison? You've been cheated on so badly, and you're still puffing out your chest like an alpha male. Are you going to have your goons beat me up? Or are you going to take them to the hospital and beat up that cheating pair?" Kevin stared at the photo, his hands shaking so violently that the phone clattered to the floor, the screen shattering. His face went from red to a deathly gray. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His arrogant eyes went blank. He stumbled backward and then collapsed, clutching his head and letting out a guttural, agonized howl. The downfall of a narcissist was a pathetic sight. His guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. They eventually lifted their boss by his arms and dragged him out, leaving me in the chillingly silent room. The next morning, a sharp, insistent knock woke me from a fitful sleep. It wasn't thugs or Kevin's family. 2 uniformed police officers stood on my doorstep. Neighbors peered out of their windows, whispering and pointing their phones at me with contemptuous looks. I had no idea what was happening until one of the officers spoke in a stern voice. Miss Clara Miller, we have received a formal complaint from the family of Miss Veronica Harrison. You are being charged with defamation of character and the use of falsified images to slander another person, resulting in severe emotional distress and a subsequent miscarriage. Please come with us to the station for questioning. I was stunned. I smoothed my messy hair and replied, "You have the wrong person. The photo on my phone is real. I took it myself. I didn't edit or alter it in any way. She is the one at fault. I am the victim in this situation. We will clarify all matters at the station. Your broken phone from last night has been taken into evidence. Our tech experts have extracted the data. The preliminary forensic analysis shows that the image file contains traces of manipulation by editing software. It would be in your best interest to cooperate fully." The officer gestured for me to come with them. As I walked out of the apartment complex, I could clearly hear the woman who ran the corner store cursing at me. Such a wicked woman. Her husband leaves her, so she goes and destroys someone else's life, making a poor woman lose her baby out of jealousy. The things people are saying about her online, she's a monster. I clenched my fists. The storm had hit so fast. Veronica had struck first. Knowing I held her fatal secret, she had used her questionable pregnancy to flip the entire narrative. By blaming me for her miscarriage, she had instantly become the ultimate victim in the public eye. She wanted to send me to prison to eliminate the threat I posed. Sitting in the police car, I remained outwardly calm, but my mind was racing. That photo was taken with my phone's standard camera, in a hurry. I knew nothing about photo editing. How could forensic experts claim it was a fake? The interrogation room was cold, with a single steel table and a harsh white light shining down. The wall clock ticked loudly. The detective placed a thick report on the table, his sharp eyes boring into me. "Miss Miller, the digital evidence is clear. The source code of the image file on your phone contains markers from the latest version of Photoshop. The lighting on the man's face and the hotel background are inconsistent with the ambient light. How do you explain this?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I'll say it again. I do not know how to use Photoshop. That picture was taken on the 15th of last month. If you don't believe me, you can pull the security footage from the Grand Dalton Hotel for that day to verify." We already contacted the hotel. The manager informed us that their security system's hard drive malfunctioned on that exact day and no data was saved. "All the current evidence points to you, Miss Miller. The Harrison family is very influential. If you don't confess, you could face 1 to 3 years in prison for slander causing bodily harm. I advise you to write a public apology and offer compensation to have the charges dropped." My brain worked furiously. The security cameras malfunctioning on that specific day, a real photo turning into a fake one. It was all too coincidental, unless someone had deliberately tampered with my phone. My phone, a flash of memory. About 3 months ago, while I was still living at the Harrison estate, my phone fell in water and died. Mila, who was usually so nasty, had suddenly offered to take it to a repair shop for me. A few days later, she returned it, working perfectly, so I thought nothing of it. During that period, Veronica had been a frequent visitor, posing as a business partner and becoming very close with Mila. It was all clear now. Veronica was a diabolical schemer. She must have seen me outside the hotel that day. Fearing I would use the photo against her, she had planned this far in advance. She had bribed the phone repairman to secretly install software or, even worse, replace the original photo with a crudely edited version. That way, if I ever released it, she could demand a forensic analysis and have me convicted of fabricating evidence. I leaned back in the chair. The depravity of these wealthy people was beyond my imagination. I looked at the detective, my voice low but firm. "I would rather go to prison than bow to a liar. I will not be writing any apologies. If the law needs proof, I will find the proof myself to unmask them." The detective sighed and closed the file. "You're very stubborn. You can wait in the holding cell for the formal charges." The heavy steel door slammed shut. Darkness and the cold of the cell enveloped me. But I didn't cry. My tears had all been spent during my 3 years with the Harrisons. Now, All I had left was the will to fight for my survival. On the afternoon of my second day in the holding cell, the steel door creaked open. The guard announced I had been bailed out. I stepped outside, blinking against the harsh sunlight. In the waiting area, a man sat with his head in his hands. He looked up as I approached. It was Kevin. The arrogant, well-dressed man who had scorned me was gone. In his place was a wreck. His face was covered in stubble, his eyes were bloodshot and sunken, and his shirt was wrinkled and stained. He walked toward me, his eyes filled with guilt and desperation. "Clara, are you okay? I've posted bail. You can go home." I took a step back. "Why did you bail me out? Don't you want me in prison to pay for your wife's bastard child?" Kevin gave a bitter, broken smile. "I was wrong, Clara. I was blinded by that woman. This morning, Harrison Holdings stock plummeted. Our banks called in all our loans, and our biggest partners terminated their contracts, effective immediately. Alexander Sterling has made his move. He's bankrupting my company in a single morning." I crossed my arms, my voice cold. "Your business has nothing to do with me. I didn't ask him to do that." "He came to see me," Kevin continued, his voice trembling. "He showed me your mother's complete medical file. He told me that the $50,000 wedding gift my family gave you was used entirely for her surgery. And you donated the rest to an orphanage, in my name. And all that time my mother, my sister, and we called you a gold digger, accused you of stealing from us. Clara, I am a monster. Your regret is cheap." I cut him off. "You only bailed me out because you're afraid Sterling will destroy you. Your selfishness is in your blood." "It's not just that," he said, pulling a crumpled receipt from his pocket. "Last night, I was packing up some of Veronica's things at the hospital. I found this. It's a wire transfer receipt. She sent $10,000 to a phone repair guy on 7th Street. On the exact day my sister took your phone to be fixed. I know you were framed. She set you up to hide her affair. That baby, it was never mine. The miscarriage was because of her own weak constitution, from too many plastic surgeries. The doctor confirmed it. She used the scene at the wedding to frame you." I looked at the receipt. The universe did have a sense of justice after all. I looked Kevin in the eye. "So, you know the truth. What are you going to do? Protect her, or testify for me?" He hung his head. "I'll testify for you. I'll report her for perjury and filing a false police report. I'm begging you, Clara. Ask Sterling to spare my family's company. It was my father's life's work." I smirked and turned to walk away. "Testifying is your civic duty. As for whether your company survives or dies, I don't care, and I have no influence. Everything you are suffering now is simply karma." As I stepped out of the police station, a sleek black luxury car was parked at the curb. The tinted window rolled down. Alexander was in the driver's seat, his gentle eyes on me. He wasn't in a suit, just a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. "Get in," he said. "Let's get you something to eat. Then we have a stop to make." I got in, my voice quiet. "You didn't have to destroy the Harrison family for me. I don't want to owe you so much." He started the car, his voice firm but warm. "I have my own business principles. The Harrisons have been corrupt for a long time. I just used this as an opportunity to clean up the market. You don't owe me anything. Now, let's go get you some justice." The car sped toward the city's most exclusive private hospital. Alexander led me straight to the top floor, the VIP wing. As we approached the end of the hall, we could hear the sound of crashing objects and shrill screams. "Get out, you incompetent quacks. Who gave you permission to give me this cheap IV drip? My husband is a CEO. I demand the most expensive medicine." It was Veronica's voice. I pushed the door open. The room was a disaster zone. A crystal vase, glasses, and medical trays were shattered on the floor. A few terrified nurses huddled in a corner. Veronica, in a hospital gown, her hair a mess, her surgically perfected face twisted in a hideous snarl of rage, froze when she saw me and Alexander walk in. "You. Why are you here? Where are the police? Why did they release a criminal like you?" I calmly walked across the broken glass and sat on a clean sofa. Alexander stood behind me like a guardian deity. "Hello, Heather," I said coolly. "Having a bit of a tantrum? You should know, this entire hospital network is owned by Sterling Industries. The vase you just broke is probably worth more than you were before your transformation. I hope your husband is ready to pay for the damages." Veronica shrank back on the bed. "Don't you get cocky. You made me lose my baby. A prison sentence is waiting for you. You think because you have a rich backer you can get away with it? The law will get you." I laughed. Still clinging to that pathetic lie. "You bribed a phone tech to frame me. Too bad for you, the $10,000 receipt is now in Kevin's hands." Her face went white. "You're lying. Kevin loves me. He would never betray me." "Does he love you? Or the fake heiress persona you created?" I stood and walked toward her bed. "Kevin personally bailed me out of jail, and he has already filed a statement with the police to testify against you for perjury and evidence tampering. So enjoy your last few days of luxury. Because the next place you'll be calling home is a prison cell, along with the mountain of debt you racked up to pay for that face." She clutched her head and screamed in despair, frantically dialing Kevin's number, only to be met with a busy signal. Her last lifeline was gone. Just then, the door opened, and Beatrice and Mila walked in, carrying expensive gift baskets. Their faces darkened when they saw us. "You bitch!" Beatrice shrieked, throwing her basket on the table. "Wasn't it enough that you made my daughter-in-law lose her child? You dare show your face here. You're jealous because you're a barren wasteland, and she's a golden branch carrying the Harrison heir. Get out before I have security. Break your legs." Mila chimed in. "So shameless. You think because you snagged a rich man you're something special? Trash will always be trash." Beatrice lunged forward, her hand raised to strike me. This time, I was ready. I caught her wrist and shoved her back. She stumbled into Mila. Alexander stepped forward, but I held up a hand. This was my fight. I stared at Beatrice, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Mrs. Harrison, take a good look at your precious daughter-in-law. You despise my humble origins, but do you know her real name is Heather? That she comes from a dirt-poor town, has a high school education at best, and that entire face was built by a surgeon. That 5 years ago, I had to pay her $1,200 hospital bill so she wouldn't be thrown out on the street." Beatrice stared at Veronica, who was now sobbing under her blanket. "Mom, don't listen to her. I'm Veronica." I delivered the final blow. "Veronica, ask your precious son. Kevin has already given the police the receipt, and that baby bump of hers, it was from some fat cat businessman she was sleeping with to pay off her surgery debts. Are you so sure the child she lost was your grandchild? Kevin has confessed everything. Your prestigious family has been worshipping a cheap piece of trash." Beatrice's face turned from red to purple to a deathly white. She clutched her chest, gasping for air. Her pride, her entire sense of superiority, was shattered. But instead of accepting the truth, she chose to protect her family's tarnished image. She glared at me, hissing, "You're lying. And even if it's true, I won't let a woman like you destroy my family. How much money will it take for you to shut up? 1 million? 5? Take it and disappear." I burst out laughing, a bitter sound. I stepped closer to her. 100 million, I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Do you have 100 million to buy my silence? Your company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Where are you going to get that kind of money?" She was speechless, trembling with humiliation. Just then, Alexander stepped between us, his imposing presence chilling the room. "Clara doesn't need your filthy money," he said, his voice like ice. "And that 100 million? I'll throw it in your faces on her behalf. The truth about your fake daughter-in-law will be on the front page of every newspaper tomorrow morning. If you know what's good for you, you will stay away from my woman. If any of you ever insults her again, I will personally ensure you end up begging on the streets." Beatrice and Mila were paralyzed with fear. I smiled, took Alexander's hand, and walked proudly out of the room. Behind us, the sounds of their wails and Veronica's destructive rampage echoed down the hall a fitting funeral dirge for the fall of the House of Harrison. As we walked down the quiet, carpeted hospital corridor, I could feel the cold air from the central conditioning on my skin. Alexander's hand was still wrapped firmly around mine. a strange warmth that seemed to chase away the chill that had settled in my heart for 3 long years. All the burdens, all the pain, seemed to have been left behind in that chaotic hospital room. The bright afternoon sun hit me as we stepped outside. Alexander opened the car door for me, carefully shielding my head with his hand so I wouldn't bump it. The small, considerate gesture flustered me. In my marriage to Kevin, I was always the one to serve. No one had ever treated me with such care. As he drove, he asked gently, "Let's get you some lunch. You must be exhausted." I nodded, my stomach growling. The car glided to a stop in front of an exclusive French restaurant tucked away on a tree-lined street downtown. We had just ordered when a shrill female voice cut through the romantic ambiance. Well, well, what a small world. If it isn't Chairman Sterling and Kevin's poor, pathetic ex-wife. A young woman in a daring red silk dress sauntered over. It was Tiffany, Kevin's first love. She had often visited the Harrison house, making snide remarks about my background. When Veronica appeared on the scene, Tiffany had quickly befriended her, and the two of them would often gang up on me. Alexander frowned, his voice cold. The security in this establishment seems to be lacking. Tiffany ignored him, pulling up a chair and crossing her long legs. She looked me up and down. "You move fast, Clara. Barely divorced and you've already snagged the most powerful man in the city. No wonder the Harrisons are in such a mess. Did you use your feminine wiles to convince Mr. Sterling to destroy Kevin's company for revenge?" I set my water glass down, my eyes sharp. "Watch what you say, Tiffany. The Harrisons collapsed because of their own incompetence and corruption. And your best friend is in a hospital bed waiting to be arrested for perjury. Shouldn't you be visiting her? Or did you dump her as soon as her benefactors went bankrupt?" Tiffany laughed, a strange, mocking sound. "Oh, Clara, you're so naive. You think I was friends with that country bumpkin Heather for real? I just found the whole drama too amusing not to have a front row seat. You think she pulled this off on her own? A girl who couldn't pay a $1,200 hospital bill suddenly has the means and the brains to fool an entire dynasty? You give her way too much credit." My heart skipped a beat. Tiffany's words hit a nerve. I had always wondered how Veronica had transformed so quickly, where she had gotten the money and the connections. "What do you mean?" I demanded. "Who was really behind her?" Tiffany glanced at Alexander, her smile turning venomous. "Why don't you ask the man sitting right in front of you?" "Oh, Clara, you poor thing. You think you're the heroine in some fairy tale, saved by a handsome prince. You're wrong. You, Heather, the entire Harrison family. You were all just pawns in the Sterling family's bloody game of revenge. Why don't you ask him where that $50,000 wedding gift you used for your mother's surgery really came from? Why don't you ask him who turned a simple girl like Heather into the perfect weapon to destroy Kevin Harrison from the inside?" "That's enough." Alexander suddenly slammed his hand on the table, the glasses rattling. His eyes were bloodshot, a murderous rage radiating from him that seemed to freeze the air. Tiffany stood up, unfazed. "I've said what I needed to say. The show is over. Enjoy your meal. And try to face the truth with a little courage, won't you, my poor, dear nurse?" She sauntered away, leaving a deafening silence in her wake. I sat there, frozen. The steak that had just arrived sat untouched. Tiffany's words echoed in my head. I looked at Alexander. He wouldn't meet my gaze. His face was a hard mask, his hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. What terrible truth was hidden behind the facade of my savior? The atmosphere in the restaurant was suffocating. "We need to talk," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Not here." He nodded silently, paid the bill, and followed me to the car. The silence during the drive was a heavy weight. He drove away from the city, toward a secluded, gated community of mansions along the river. He led me inside a palatial home, decorated in a grand, European style. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice shaking. What did she mean? Who is behind all of this? He closed his eyes, a look of profound weariness on his face. He finally sat down across from me, his voice a hoarse whisper. Tiffany was telling the truth. Heather's transformation, her infiltration of the Harrison family, it was all orchestrated, down to the last detail. And the director of this perfect play was my mother. I stared at him, speechless. "Your mother?" What feud did she have with them to go to such lengths? And so, he told me the story. 10 years ago, the Sterlings were betrayed by Kevin's father. He had stolen their business plans, framed Alexander's father for financial crimes, and driven their company into bankruptcy. Humiliated and facing ruin, Alexander's father had taken his own life. At the time, Alexander was in a hospital bed, fighting for his life against leukemia. His mother had been left to pick up the pieces, swearing revenge on the family that had destroyed them. My mother found Heather, he continued, his voice filled with pain. She needed a pawn, someone with enough jealousy, greed, and ruthlessness to see the plan through. She paid for Heather's surgeries, created a fake identity for her, and gave her unlimited funds to lure Kevin in. And Heather agreed because she was desperate to enter high society, but more than that, she hated you, Clara. Hated me, I cried out. But why? I helped her when she had nothing. Because your kindness was a mirror to her own failures, he explained, his eyes full of sorrow. To someone with a bitter, insecure heart, genuine kindness can feel like pity, like a judgment. She saw you, also from a humble background, but with a noble profession, natural beauty, and a good heart. She was consumed by jealousy. When my mother made her the offer, Heather's one condition was that your life had to be destroyed. I collapsed back, laughing a broken, tear-filled laugh. So that was it. My 3 years of suffering, of abuse and humiliation. I was just collateral damage, a sacrificial lamb in a war between two wealthy dynasties. I didn't know, Alexander pleaded, his face a mask of anguish. I didn't know about her plan until I found you. I wanted to expose it, to save you, but my mother threatened to hurt you even more if I interfered. So I had to wait, to watch from the sidelines, and try to find a way to get you out safely. I swear to you, Clara, my feelings for you have always been real. Real? I scoffed, tears streaming down my face. How can anything be real? You all use people, use money to manipulate lives. How are you any different from them? I scrambled away from him, running out of the cold, magnificent house, his desperate calls echoing behind me. The sky opened up as I ran blindly from the Sterling mansion. A black Bentley pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing an impeccably dressed woman in her 60s, her face a mask of cool authority. It was his mother. "Get in the car," she commanded. "Running won't solve anything." Her voice was quiet, but held an unbreakable will. When I refused, she threatened my job, my mother. Defeated, I got in. She took me to a private, quiet tea house. "I assume Alexander told you everything," she said, pouring tea with elegant, steady hands. "Why me?" I demanded, my voice raw. "Why drag me into your war? You weren't a target, child. You were simply a casualty," she said, her voice devoid of remorse. "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. When I found Heather, she was a bitter, envious creature. Her only demand in exchange for her cooperation was your complete and utter ruin. The cruelty of it stole my breath. Because I helped her? Precisely, she said, a flicker of something almost like pity in her eyes. Your charity was an insult to her pride. She saw you as a rival who had everything she wanted. The envy of the truly destitute is the most potent poison in the world. She then pulled out a blank, signed check. "This is for your suffering. Write any number you wish, but you will take this money and disappear from my son's life. A sparrow cannot nest with an eagle." I looked at the check. It was a ticket to an easy life. But my dignity was not for sale. I took the check, tore it into tiny pieces, and let them flutter onto the table. "Keep your blood money," I said, my voice steely. "You and your fake daughter-in-law are two of a kind. I may be poor, but I am not for sale. And as for your son, I have no intention of clinging to him. From now on, your family's war has nothing to do with me, but if you ever dare to harm my family again, I will use my last breath to fight you in a court of law." I walked out into the pouring rain, leaving her stunned and furious. For the first time in 3 years, I felt truly free, truly strong. The rain continued all night. In my small, squalid room, I ate a package of instant noodles, my mind blessedly empty. Just as I finished, the phone rang. It was Kevin, drunk and sobbing. "Clara, "Help me," he wailed. "It's all gone." The bank seized the house. My mother had a stroke when she saw the foreclosure notice. She's in the ICU, paralyzed. Mila, loan sharks found her. They beat her, broke her arm, and slashed her face over the debts she ran up with Veronica. I'm standing outside the public hospital in the rain. I have nothing, Clara. Please, can't we go back? I was wrong. I was so wrong. I listened to his pathetic pleas, his talk of the good times that never were, his memories of the kindness I had shown that he had never reciprocated. "Kevin," I said, my voice as cold and steady as a surgeon's hand, "the kindness you remember was the kindness you threw away. The life you have now is the one you earned. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked his number. The dirge for the Harrison family was finally over. The next morning, I woke up with a headache, but a clear purpose. I was packing my few belongings to move, to start over, when my door was flung open. The room had been ransacked. Someone had broken in while I was in the shower. My mother's medical records, my only precious documents, were scattered everywhere. My phone rang. It was Veronica, calling from a smuggled phone. "Like my little gift this morning?" She cackled, a crazed edge to her voice. "You think you've won? Let me tell you a little secret, Clara. That $50,000 you used for your mother's kidney transplant, that was the first payment of the blood money my father-in-law extorted from the Sterlings before he drove Alexander's father to his death. Your mother is alive today because Alexander's father is dead. Her life was bought with his. How does your clean conscience feel now, you self-righteous bitch?" The phone fell from my hand. The world swam before my eyes. The truth was a poison more venomous than anything I could have imagined. I collapsed to the floor, the weight of a guilt I never knew I carried, crushing me. Just then, Alexander arrived. He took in the trashed room, my devastated state. "Clara, what happened?" He rushed to my side, but I recoiled as if burned. "Don't touch me!" I screamed, confronting him with Veronica's final, cruel revelation. His face went pale. He admitted it was true, that he had only recently discovered the origin of that specific sum of money. He tried to explain, to tell me it wasn't my fault, that the money was stolen property being used for a good deed. "A good deed?" I cried, tears of rage and shame streaming down my face. "Your world is built on games of money and power, where lives are just numbers on a spreadsheet. My mother's life is now tied to your father's death. Your love is too heavy, Alexander. I can't bear it. Please, just leave me alone." He stood there, his face a portrait of agony, then turned and walked out, leaving me broken in the ruins of my room. 3 days later, a lawyer appeared at my door. He handed me a portfolio. Alexander had unconditionally transferred 10% of his personal shares in Sterling Industries to me, an amount worth hundreds of millions. With it was a letter. "Clara," it read, "this is not charity or pity. This is a debt my family owes you. 10 years ago, you saved my life. For the last 3, you suffered because of my family's war. My father's stolen money was used by you to save a life. He would have wanted that. Please, do not carry a guilt that isn't yours. If you cannot accept my love, then please accept this as my most sincere apology. Yours, Alex." As I read, the ice around my heart began to crack. He was willing to give up a fortune just to ease my conscience. Just then, he appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. He had gone to war with his own mother, he told me, and had won. She would never bother me again. "The shares are yours to do with as you please," he said, his voice raw. "Donate them, burn them, I don't care. Just please, don't push me away again. 10 years has been long enough to wait." I looked into his eyes and saw a love that was pure and unwavering, a love that had survived death and time and the sins of a generation. My own pride, my own pain, finally fell away. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. He held me tight, as if he would never let go. The war was over. Love had won. In the following weeks, life transformed. Alexander helped me move into a beautiful, secure, high-rise apartment. One morning, he told me the final news. Veronica, on the run and hounded by the loan sharks she owed millions to, had been captured. In the ensuing struggle, They had beaten her severely. The violent impacts had destroyed the delicate structures of her plastic surgery. Her perfect face was now a grotesque, ruined mask. She was arrested, a disfigured, penniless criminal, her life built on lies now a permanent ruin. With Alexander's support and my own fierce determination, I used the incredible wealth I now commanded. I established the Eleanor Vance Foundation, a charity dedicated to funding cancer treatments for the poor and building schools in underserved communities. A year passed. I stood on the red carpet of a national philanthropy gala, a celebrated chairperson, a woman of power and grace. Alexander was by my side, his eyes shining with pride. From a balcony, I looked down and saw them, Kevin, Beatrice, and Mila, now homeless, fighting over scraps from the hotel's dumpsters. And with them, a disfigured, monstrous-looking woman I barely recognized as Veronica, recently released from prison. She saw me, fell to her knees, and begged for money, for forgiveness. Kevin looked up, saw me in all my splendor, and the full weight of what he had lost crushed him. He simply turned and shuffled away into the darkness. I felt nothing but a quiet finality. I walked to the stage and gave a speech about kindness, about hope, about second chances. Later, I left a large sum of cash with the hotel manager, with instructions to give it to the homeless man named Kevin not as charity, but as a final repayment of a long-dead karmic debt. Alexander didn't drive me home to the apartment that night. He took me to a charming, vine-covered house surrounded by a garden of white roses. "This is your house, Clara," he said, his smile soft in the moonlight. "Bought and built with the profits from your own shares. You built this yourself." As fireworks began to burst over the city skyline, the most powerful man I knew knelt on one knee in the grass. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Clara, 10 years ago, you saved my life. For the past year, you've taught me how to live again. I can't promise you a perfect life, but I promise to spend the rest of mine protecting your smile. Will you marry me?" Tears of pure joy streamed down my face. Through all the pain, all the betrayal, I had found my way here. "Yes," I whispered, my voice clear and full. "Yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, stood, and lifted me into his arms, spinning me around in the rose garden, as the sky exploded in a celebration of light, marking the true and final beginning of our lives. I picked up the thread, my voice trembling in shock as the final puzzle pieces locked into a terrifying picture. That's right, your mother needed a pawn with innate envy, bottomless greed, and enough cruelty to complete this brutal play. She paid for all the plastic surgery, hired experts to teach Hannah how to walk and talk, and forged a flawless background of a prestigious European-educated heiress. She gave Hannah unlimited funds to flaunt wealth, creating a dazzling facade that Kevin blindly chased. Hannah willingly acted as your mother's tool because she craved entry into high society, and most importantly, because she harbored a deep hatred for me. Why did she hate me? I screamed, full of grievance. I used my tiny student nurse paycheck to pay her hospital bills when she was at her lowest. I bought her food every day. I never did anything wrong to her, because your selfless help inadvertently injured her cheap, fragile ego. Preston looked me straight in the eye, his voice full of pity. When poor people harbor selfish, dark hearts, they view the kindness of others as condescending charity, as silent contempt. She saw that you possessed natural beauty, a kind heart, and eventually married into a wealthy family despite just being a nurse. She was driven mad with jealousy. So, when my mother offered the deal, the very first condition Hannah demanded was to drag you through the mud, to rob you of your family and your dignity. I burst out laughing, a loud laugh full of tears and visceral bitterness. So that's how it is. It turns out my 3 years of breaking my back, acting as a servant, enduring the humiliation from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, gritting my teeth through the slap Kevin gave me when he threw the divorce papers in my face. All of it was orchestrated by the hands of a stranger, sitting high up in her ivory tower. I became a pathetic sacrificial lamb, a scapegoat ruthlessly tossed aside in your family's aristocratic war of vengeance. "Lily, listen to me explain everything." Preston rushed forward to grab my hands, but I violently yanked them away with all my remaining strength. Explain what? I backed away, pointing a finger directly at Preston's face. If your family wanted revenge, target Kevin's family. Slaughter each other. Why drag an innocent woman like me into this filthy swamp? You people use money to manipulate lives, trampling on the emotions of others. How are you any different from the wicked people in Kevin's family? It's not what you think. I absolutely did not know about this plan of my mother's until I coincidentally found you. Preston defended himself, panic clear on his sharp features. When I realized Hannah was a plant my mother placed in Kevin's house, I vehemently opposed it. I intended to expose everything right then to save you. But my mother threatened that if I interfered and ruined her 10-year plan, she would use tactics that would hurt you 10 times worse. I was forced to stand down, secretly watching over you, and trying to find the safest way to get you out of that house. I swear to heaven and earth, my feelings for you over the last 10 years have been completely pure and sincere. Pure? I laughed mockingly, tears streaming down my pale cheeks. The truth was so filthy it made me nauseous. Everything happening around me is a blatant lie. I don't know if I can trust anyone in this ruthless world of the ultra-rich anymore. I hugged my purse tightly, turned my back, and ran as fast as I could out of that magnificent but chillingly tomb-like mansion, leaving behind Preston's desperate calls echoing mournfully behind me. The late afternoon sky over New York gathered dark, churning clouds, warning of an impending severe thunderstorm. I ran for my life away from the Vanguard estate. My legs were numb, my breaths jagged, carrying the salty taste of tears. Preston's explanations still echoed in my ears, piercing my shattering sanity. I didn't know how far I had run, only that when my knees were about to give out on the hard asphalt, a pitch-black Bentley rolled up and braked sharply right beside me. The window rolled down. A woman in her 60s, wearing power makeup and her hair pinned up with a jade hairpin, sat in the back seat. Her eyes were as cold and sharp as razor blades, carrying the absolute authority of someone who had stood at the pinnacle of power for decades. I had never met her, but my intuition screamed that this woman was the author of the cruel play that had just been exposed. Get in the car, young lady. Running away doesn't solve anything. We need to have a frank conversation, woman to woman, Catherine said in an even tone, not loud, but carrying a heavy pressure that forced obedience. I straightened my back, trying to suppress the tremors of my exhausted body. I looked her straight in the eye and firmly replied, "You're Mrs. Catherine, right? I don't think there's anything frank for us to discuss. I am just a lowly nurse, unworthy of stepping into your expensive car." Catherine gave a slight smirk, a smile full of arrogance and superiority. "Your pride is higher than I expected. But if you don't get in the car, tomorrow your hospital will receive an order for your termination. Your mother back in your hometown will also face some trouble from the debt collectors I just dispatched. Get in the car, or lose everything. The choice is yours." The threat hit my only vulnerabilities. My mother was my life. My job was my only source of income. I bit my lip until it bled, reached out, opened the door, and sat as far away from her as physically possible. The car glided away as the torrential rain began to pour, heading toward a highly exclusive, private tea room tucked away in a historic alley. Inside, the faint scent of sandalwood did nothing to soothe the extreme tension between us. Catherine personally brewed a pot of premium Tiaguanian tea, leisurely pouring it into 2 paper-thin porcelain cups. She slid 1 cup toward me, her movements incredibly graceful. "Drink some tea to warm up. I assume Preston has told you everything about my 10-year plan." Catherine opened the conversation, her eyes never leaving the thin steam rising from the cup. I didn't touch the tea. My voice rang out like steel. "Why were you so heartless to drag an uninvolved person like me into your war? You getting revenge on Kevin, getting revenge on his family, that is your right. But what did I do wrong? 3 years of my youth were buried in that house. Do you know what it feels like to be humiliated every single day?" Catherine set her teacup down on the table, the porcelain clicking dryly. She looked at me, her eyes devoid of a single ounce of guilt or pity. "You did nothing wrong, Lily. You were just the unlucky person standing in the wrong spot on my chessboard. When I found Hannah, she was a dishwasher in a rundown diner, wearing an ugly face and a heart filled with envy. I asked her what she wanted in exchange for being my inside mole. She only made one demand: to destroy you. My heart clenched. Why? I saved her from being kicked out of the hospital. I fed her when she was starving. Why is kindness repaid with such filthy hatred? I choked out, a wave of helplessness rising. Because you are too naive. Catherine sighed, a sigh full of the philosophy of the experienced. The kindness of the rich toward the poor is seen as charity, but the kindness of a poor person like you toward someone at the absolute bottom of society like Hannah sometimes acts as a knife slashing apart their cheap pride. Hannah saw that you were poor just like her, but you had a career, you had beauty, you had a peaceful family. You taking your meager salary to pay her debt didn't move her. She viewed it as a humiliating handout. She thought you were trying to act superior to trample on her pathetic situation. The envy of the lowly is the most terrifying poison in this world. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes to accept the disgusting truth about human nature. Just because of a sick inferiority complex, Hannah was willing to sell her conscience, sell the body her parents gave her, and dive into a play of revenge just to drag me down into the black mud. I agreed to Hannah's demand. Catherine continued with her icy tone. I pushed you into a situation where Kevin abandoned you, where your in-laws humiliated you. But in return, you helped me successfully shatter the pride of Kevin's family. I have no hatred toward you. On the contrary, I acknowledge your resilience. Catherine opened her designer handbag, pulled out a pre-signed check, but left the amount blank. She pushed the check to the edge of the table near me. This is compensation for your 3 years of endurance. You can fill in any number you want. 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever you like. But under one condition: take the money and disappear from Preston's life. Preston forgot his family's feud because he loves you. He dared to disobey me to protect you in front of Kevin. You two belong to two completely different worlds. A sparrow can never build its nest on the branch of a phoenix. Take the money and leave, and you will have a comfortable life until the end of your days. I stared at the blank check. That money could help me buy a spacious house, take my mother traveling everywhere, and never have to worry about food or clothing again. But my dignity was not something to be bought and sold. All the resentment of the past 3 years suddenly transformed into an invisible strength helping me stand firm. I stood up, picked up the check with 2 fingers, tore it into tiny pieces, and let them flutter down onto the table. Mrs. Catherine, keep your filthy money stained with blood and tears, I replied with my most steely voice. You and your fake daughter-in-law are exactly the same. You both love using money to manipulate others. I may be poor, but I do not sell my self-respect cheap. As for Preston, I never intended to cling to him to change my life. Take him back and lock him in your golden cage. From now on, the feud between the Vanguard Corporation and Kevin's empire has nothing to do with me. If you dare touch my family again, I will use my life to sue you in court. Having said my piece, I grabbed my purse and walked straight out the door, leaving behind Catherine's face stiff with anger. The rain outside was still pouring heavily, but my footsteps felt firmer and lighter than ever. I had completely shed my fragile shell to stand on my own 2 feet. The torrential rain lasted through the night. I had run through the storm back to my apartment, my entire body soaked and freezing. The cramped, run-down room welcomed me with silent darkness. The sound of rain drumming on the old tin roof echoed with a mournful, sorrowful rhythm. I quickly changed into dry clothes and made a cheap packet of instant ramen to warm my body. My mind was completely empty now. All the hatred, all the pain, all the resentment seemed to have been washed away by the rain outside. I just wanted to sleep deeply, and tomorrow morning I would wake up, apply for jobs at private clinics, and start over as an ordinary nurse living a simple life. Just as I lifted the bowl of noodles, my phone on the bed rang loudly. I glanced at the screen. It was a completely unfamiliar number. After hesitating for a few seconds, I answered. The other end only held the sound of rushing rain, mixed with heavy panting and the choked sobs of a man. Lily, please save me. The familiar voice sounded desperate, broken, and raspy from heavy drinking. It was Kevin. I immediately went to hang up, but Kevin howled in absolute despair. Don't hang up. I beg you. Just let me say a few words. I am standing in the rain. I have nowhere else to go. Lily. You called the wrong number. I replied coldly. CEO Kevin of the illustrious Sterling Empire. How could you have nowhere to go? Where is your 5-star hotel? Where is your multi-million-dollar mansion? It's all gone. It's all completely gone, Lily. Kevin wailed and cried like a child stripped of his favorite toy. The bank foreclosed on the mansion this afternoon. All of my family's assets were seized to pay off debts. Preston pushed us to a dead end. When my mother saw the police putting up the foreclosure notice, she was so furious her blood pressure spiked, and she had a stroke right at the gate. She is lying in the ER of a public hospital. The doctors say even if she survives, she'll be paralyzed on one side. I listened in silence. The collapse happened so fast, so ruthlessly fast, but my heart didn't muster a single ounce of pity. It's not over yet, Kevin continued to sob, his voice carrying sheer terror. Mia was ambushed and beaten half to death by loan sharks. They said Mia partnered with Victoria in business and owed them exorbitant loan shark interest, ballooning to millions of dollars. Mia's arm was broken, and her face was slashed to ribbons. I just brought her to the hospital to lie next to my mother. I don't even have a single dime to buy bandages for my sister. Lily, I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. God had eyes. Those who trampled on the dignity of others finally had to taste the feeling of being buried in the black mud. The cruelty of the Vanguard Corporation truly left their enemies with no way out. Why are you telling me this? Kevin, we are divorced. Whether you and your family live or die has nothing to do with me. I replied in a flat, emotionless voice. Kevin cried louder, his sobs blending with the howling rain through the phone speaker. Can you come visit me for just a bit? I am standing outside the hospital. I'm so cold. Do you remember the old days? When I was sick, you stayed up all night making me homemade chicken soup. You massaged my mother's arms and legs when she complained of aches. Our family used to be so happy. Why did everything turn out like this? Forgive me, Lily. Can we start over? I'll go work minimum wage to support you. Our family used to be happy? I gave a bitter, sour smile. Is your memory that bad, Kevin? Or is your shameless nature just ingrained in your blood? Did you forget how I lived in your mansion for 3 years? Did you forget the day you flipped the dinner table because the food I cooked smelled cheap? Did you forget the time your mother falsely accused me of stealing her gold necklace and forced me to kneel and apologize in the middle of the living room while you stood there with your arms crossed, looking at me with disgust? I took a deep breath, compressing all my resentment, and spat out every word clearly. You said I couldn't have kids. You brought Hannah in and put her on a pedestal so she could birth you a bastard child. You cheated on me. You framed me. Your family treated me like a stray dog to order around. Now that you've lost everything, now that you're trampled by others, asterisk now times you remember my chicken soup? Kevin, I would rather feed that soup to a dog than give it to an ungrateful bastard like you. Lily, I know I was wrong. Please have mercy. Just say one word to CEO Preston to beg him to spare my family. If you just open your mouth, he will listen to you. Please have pity on my mother. She's old and frail. Kevin begged in utter cowardice. She's old and frail, but the slap she landed on my face on the day of our divorce was plenty strong. I cut him off mercilessly. Everything you people are suffering today is karma. Kevin, experience the feeling of having nothing, of being humiliated and despised by the world yourself. From now on, never call me again. Consider Kevin dead in my heart. I brutally pressed the end call button. Then, I opened my contacts and permanently blocked the number. The rain outside continued to fall, but inside this tiny apartment, the atmosphere had become bizarrely clean and clear. The eulogy for the Kevin's family empire had officially been read, ending a tear-soaked, tragic chapter of my life. The torrential rain that lasted through the night finally ceased as the weak, early morning sunlight filtered through the glass window. I woke up with a splitting headache. After quickly cooking a bowl of plain oatmeal to warm my stomach, I decided to pack up my things and prepare to submit job applications to private clinics. I couldn't afford to collapse right now. My mother still needed money for anti-rejection medication after her kidney transplant, and I had to keep moving forward. Just as I stepped out of the bathroom, My flimsy apartment door suddenly swung wide open. I flinched, stepping back defensively. No one entered, but the sight before my eyes left me frozen. All my belongings, from the cheap fabric wardrobe to the cardboard boxes of old textbooks, had been violently overturned. My clothes were scattered across the floor, mixed with old shoes and plastic cups. Someone had snuck in here and trashed the place while I was in the bathroom. I panicked and lunged toward the corner of the bed, throwing aside the blankets to find a small metal lockbox. That was where I kept all of my mother's medical records and incredibly important hospital bills. The metal box was still rolling around, but its lid had been pried open. The receipts from 3 years ago were scattered all over the floor. They didn't steal any valuables because I inherently had no money or jewelry. Clearly, the intruder's only goal was vandalism, intimidation, and searching for something related to my secrets. Just as I was kneeling on the floor, picking up the receipts one by one, the phone on the table buzzed. This time, it was a landline number from the private hospital. I hesitated, then pressed answer. From the other end came a shrill, ear-piercing, almost demonic laugh. The sound blasted my eardrums, giving me goosebumps. "Nurse Lily, did you enjoy the morning surprise I gifted you?" Victoria's voice rang out, full of gloating and mania. "Your apartment already looked like a dumpster. I just sent someone to arrange it to match its true nature." I gripped the phone tightly, growling back. "Hannah, you really are crazy. You're about to stand trial for fraud and perjury. Hiring someone to destroy my property right now will only add aggravated charges to your sentence. The police will throw you in prison even faster." "So what if I go to prison?" Victoria hissed through her teeth, her voice harboring hatred deep into her marrow. "Do you think you beat me? Do you think having Preston back you up makes you a phoenix flying to the highest branch? You are dead wrong, Lily. I called you today to tell you a very interesting truth. A truth that will torment you until the day you die." "What other trick are you playing?" I asked coldly. My intuition warned me something terrible was about to crash down on my head. Victoria burst into hysterical laughter. "Do you remember the $200,000 wedding gift Kevin's family gave you 3 years ago? The money you used to buy a kidney to save your mother's life. Have you ever wondered why that cheapskate Kevin and that penny-pinching hag Eleanor suddenly acted so generously, throwing such a massive amount of money at a dirt-poor nurse right before the wedding?" My heart suddenly pounded violently. A freezing chill shot down my spine. I had times wondered. Back then, Kevin said his family wanted to do charity, to build good karma for the wedding. Because my mother's condition was incredibly critical at the time, I had no other choice. I closed my eyes and accepted the money, telling myself I would spend my entire life as a daughter-in-law serving Kevin's family to pay off the debt. Silent now, are we? Victoria continued to spit venomous words like knives, stabbing directly into my heart. Let me tell you. $300, $1 million, that was the debt Preston's father owed when he had to sell his sweat, tears, and his very life before jumping off that roof. 3 years ago, Preston's mother began squeezing Kevin's finances. She blocked all of their business avenues, leaving them desperate. Because they were strapped for cash and wanted to buy a cheap nurse to act as an unpaid maid for Eleanor, Kevin pulled out the dirty money, stolen from Preston's father years ago, to use as your bride price. Preston's mother knew exactly where that blood money was going, but she turned a blind eye. She let you bear the karmic weight of it. My eyes widened. I clutched my aching chest. Asterisk, impossible. Why would she do that? Asterisk, you became an accomplice in spending that blood money without even knowing it. Victoria screamed into the phone, her envy and sadistic joy reaching its peak. Your mother survived because of the tragic death of Preston's father. Your mother's illness was cured using the blood-soaked, tear-stained money of the family of the man who says he loves you. Are you still proud of being pure? Are you still proud of not being entangled in aristocratic feuds? Oh, Lily, your mother's life was bought with the life of another's father. What right do you have to stand before me and act morally superior? The phone slipped from my hand, hitting the tile floor with a dry thud. Victoria's words echoed endlessly in my mind, like the most vicious curse. I looked at the hospital billing receipts scattered across the floor. My signature on those papers now looked exactly like smeared bloodstains. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head with both hands. This truth was too cruel. I would rather be beaten by Eleanor, rather be betrayed by Kevin 1,000 times, than have to face this horrifying feeling of guilt. Even though Catherine didn't intentionally target me from the start, her cruel indifference had inadvertently pushed me into the worst ethical trap imaginable. Now, every heartbeat in my mother's chest carried the haunting ghost of Preston's father's suicide. The purity and pride I had tried so hard to maintain all this time were completely pulverized under the boots of the elite. The afternoon drew on. My apartment remained a chaotic mess, but I had no strength left to clean it up. I sat huddled in the corner of the room, my hollow eyes staring blankly into the void. Feelings of humiliation and guilt intertwined, gnawing at every cell in my body. Right then, the deep rumble of a car engine echoed from the alleyway. A few minutes later, Preston's tall figure appeared in the doorway. He wore a charcoal gray suit, his hair slightly messy, his jacket slightly wrinkled, proving he had rushed here straight from the office. His eyes scanned the trashed room, then stopped on my pale, haggard figure curled up in the dark corner. "Lily, what happened here? Who dared to come and trash your place?" Preston walked quickly toward me, reaching out with both hands to help me up. The moment his hands touched my arms, a freezing electric shock ran down my spine. I flinched and violently shoved his hands away. "Don't touch me," I screamed, my voice hoarse and trembling. "Stay away from me." Preston froze. His hands hovered in midair, his face displaying clear pain and shock. He lowered his voice, trying to coax me. "Lily, calm down. I got a report about suspicious people lurking around your building, so I rushed right over. Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? I'll call the police to handle these people." "Handle? Who are you going to handle?" I laughed bitterly, using the wall to shakily stand up. "The people who came to trash this place were sent by Hannah. She didn't call to threaten me. She called to tell me a very humane story about your family. Preston, look me in the eye and tell me the truth. Was the $200,000 wedding gift Kevin's family gave me the blood money from your father?" Preston's face instantly drained of color. His lips parted, but he couldn't speak. His eyes avoided my piercing glare. His hesitation was the clearest answer to all the doubts in my heart. "Since when did you know this?" I took a step forward, forcing him to face the truth. "When you found me at Kevin's house, or from the very beginning when Kevin's family used that money to marry me." "I only found out about it a few months ago," Preston finally spoke, his deep voice holding immense helplessness. 3 years ago, my mother began squeezing Kevin's cash flow. They were desperate, so they pulled out the dirty money they stole from my father to buy you as an unpaid servant for Eleanor. When I was investigating their ledgers to take down the company, I discovered that money trail. Lily, I swear to you, I had absolutely no hand in this. My mother knew they were using my father's blood money to exploit you, but she cruelly stood by and watched, treating you as an unlucky casualty caught in the crossfire of our family's war. Well, she succeeded, didn't she? I bawled through my tears. I successfully turned your father's life into medicine for my mother. Preston, you approached me, protected me in front of Kevin's family. What was it all for, in the end? Was it because of the love from 10 years ago? Or just atonement? Just the guilt of someone standing on a pedestal, looking down at the puppet, inadvertently suffering the consequences of his family's war? Don't say such hurtful things. My feelings for you were never about charity or atonement. Preston stepped forward, firmly gripping my violently shaking shoulders. I have loved you since you were the silly student nurse who always smiled at a dying boy. That money originally belonged to my family, stolen by Kevin's father. My mother let it happen, but the fact that you used it to do a good deed and save a life is ultimately a blessing. You are not at fault. You didn't steal from anyone. Please, stop torturing yourself. Let go of me. I struggled to break free from his grip. You make it sound so easy. A blessing. To you ultra-rich elites, $200,000 is just a number. The life or death of others is just a move on a chessboard. But to me, it is the heavy burden of honor and dignity. I would rather have let my mother pass away peacefully than prolong her life with money soaked in calculation and blood. I backed away until I hit the wall, pointing toward the door. The two of us carry too much unerasable karma. I cannot be with you. Every time I look at you, I remember your father's death and your mother's coldness. Your love is too heavy. I cannot carry it. Go home. Please, just let me live a peaceful life. I beg you. Salty tears streamed continuously down my cheeks. Preston stood rooted to the spot. The way he looked at me contained profound sorrow, identical to the look of that two-year-old boy, Nate, in the cancer ward so long ago. He didn't try to explain any further. The pride of a successful man seemed to have been entirely shattered by my stubbornness and trauma. He turned around and walked out of the apartment with heavy footsteps, leaving me alone with the wrecked room and a heart shattered into 100 pieces. On the morning of the third day after my argument with Preston, I woke up with swollen eyes. I tried to pack up the rest of my scattered belongings to return the apartment key. I had decided to move to an area further from the city center, start my life over, and try to earn enough money to repay the $200,000 to the Vanguard Corporation, even if I had to break my back, working for the rest of my life. That was the only way I could wash away the guilt rooted in my soul. Around 8 a.m., a polite knock echoed on the door. I opened it. Standing outside wasn't a gang of debt collectors, nor Kevin, nor Preston. It was a middle-aged man in a sharp navy suit carrying a polished black leather briefcase. He smiled politely and spoke with professional grace. "Hello, Miss Lily. I am Attorney Davis, legal representative for the CEO of the Viction Vanguard Corporation. Today I am here to deliver some important documents. I hope you can spare a moment to review them." I frowned warily. What trick was the Vanguard family playing now? Mrs. Catherine already sent people to trash my room. Now she was sending a lawyer with papers. Did she want to sue me for the $200,000? I took a step back, my voice cold. I don't have any assets to be sued for. Tell Mrs. Catherine I will work to earn the money and repay the debt in full, down to the last cent. Attorney Davis looked slightly surprised, then smiled. He took a thick stack of documents from his briefcase and placed them on the only plastic table in the room. You misunderstand, Miss Lily. The person who commissioned me to come here is CEO Preston, not his mother. Please read the contents carefully. Suspicious, I stepped forward and opened the file, which bore a bright red official seal. The bold text at the very top caught my eye. *** share transfer agreement, Vanguard Corporation. ***, I skimmed through the clauses. The content clearly stated, Preston was voluntarily and unconditionally transferring 10% of his personal shares in the corporation to me. This 10% equated to billions of dollars in veto power at board of directors meetings. On the final page, Preston's signature was already signed with decisive fountain pen strokes. Beneath the legal documents was a small, white envelope. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note in blue ink. The handwriting was bold, but carried fierce sincerity and intense emotion. Lily. When you read this letter, Attorney Davis will have completed the legal procedures. These shares are not compensation, nor are they a charitable handout. They are the assets my family owes you. 10 years ago, without your care, I would have died in the oncology ward. For the past 3 years, because of my family's revenge plot, you endured humiliation at Kevin's house. That $200,000 from years ago was my father's stolen money, but you used it to do good and save a life. My father is in heaven, and I know he is smiling down on you. I beg you not to shoulder a sin that does not belong to you. I love you for your resilient, patient, and kind soul. If you cannot accept my feelings, please consider these shares as the most sincere apology from the bottom of my heart. Your Nate. Reading every word, tears threatened to spill over again. The warmth from these lines began to melt the thick layer of ice in my heart. I understood that Preston was using his life's work to prove the purity of his love. He didn't care about Catherine's opposition, didn't care about wealth or fame. He only wanted to trade it all for my peace of mind. I looked up at Attorney Davis, intending to refuse this colossal fortune, when a tall figure walked through the front door. It was Preston. He wasn't wearing his usual sharp suit. He only wore a white t-shirt and simple jeans, looking visibly exhausted. The dark circles under his eyes proved he had been awake for many nights. Preston signaled for Attorney Davis to leave. When it was just the two of us in the room, he walked slowly toward me. He didn't hug me, nor did he use flowery words. He just stood one step away, his deeply affectionate eyes locked onto me. "Lily, I have settled everything with my mother. She will never appear to bother your life again," Preston spoke, his deep voice carrying exhaustion but absolute resolve. "That document is proof that I am willing to trade everything to earn your forgiveness. If you feel 10% is too heavy a burden, you can donate it to a charitable foundation in your mother's name. I only ask for one single thing. Don't push me away anymore. 10 years of waiting is more than enough for any man." I looked deeply into Preston's eyes. The doubts, the resentment, and the rigid pride inside me suddenly collapsed entirely. This man had used his very life to love me, used his boundless tolerance to compensate for the trauma I had to bear. I didn't need the shares. I didn't need the wealth. What I needed, from the beginning until the end, was just a solid shoulder to lean on, a sincere heart free of lies. I took a step forward, wrapping my arms tightly around Preston's broad back. My tears soaked his white t-shirt. The warmth from his body transferred to me, chasing away the coldness of those dark days. Preston tightened his arms around me, burying his face in the crook of my neck, breathing a sigh of relief as if he had just found the most precious treasure in the world. All misunderstandings, all karma, finally closed behind the door, making way for a true love sprouting from the ashes of deceit. The days after the knot was untied, my life turned a completely new page. Preston didn't force me to move into his grandiose mansion. He respected my decision to maintain my independence. He quietly rented a highly secure luxury high-rise condo in Manhattan and moved all my belongings there. Preston's subtle care was like a soft, warm quilt wrapping around my deeply scarred soul. That morning, I was sitting on the sun-drenched balcony sipping chamomile tea when Preston walked out from the kitchen, placing a plate of hot breakfast pastries on the small wooden table. His face carried a seriousness different from his usual demeanor. "Lily, I just got an update from the DA's office." Preston pulled out a chair and sat opposite me, interlacing his fingers. All the evidence Kevin provided was verified to be completely accurate. The NYPD officially executed an emergency arrest warrant for Victoria on charges of grand larceny by fraud and perjury, causing malicious harm. The news rocked New York media last night. I set my teacup down, a sense of tranquility washing over my mind. Asterisk. This day finally came. Asterisk. Someone who builds their life with bricks of lies will sooner or later collapse under the weight of those very falsehoods. I looked up at Preston and asked clearly, how did she react when she was arrested? Where did the police find her? Her situation when caught was incredibly pathetic, Preston replied, his tone carrying the coldness of a judge. When she realized Kevin took the receipt to the police, she fled the hospital that same night. She took all her jewelry and some cash, planning to cross the border. But unluckily for her, the loan sharks sniffed out her trail before the police did. They hunted her down relentlessly and caught her at a seedy motel in New Jersey. I frowned, remembering Victoria's previous threats. The extortionate interest rates from loan sharks were always a death sentence for those who couldn't pay. I pressed on. The money for her plastic surgery and the lifestyle to fake her heiress persona, wasn't all of that provided by your mother? Why did she incur such massive debt? Preston sighed, shaking his head at the stupidity of greed. My mother only provided the initial capital for her to change her face and build her cover for the first 6 months. She made it very clear that once she entered Kevin's house, Hannah had to find a way to siphon assets herself to survive. But her inherent reckless spending and obsession with buying designer goods to show off to high society turned her into a shopaholic. When the funding from my mother was cut off, she secretly approached underground loan sharks. Using her status as the daughter-in-law of the Sterling Empire, she borrowed tens of millions of dollars. She assumed that once Kevin inherited the fortune, She would have the power to drain the company's accounts to pay off the debt. But she never expected Kevin's empire to collapse so fast, leaving the massive principal and interest crashing down on her head. Truly digging her own grave, I remarked calmly. So what happened when the loan sharks caught her? They don't care about the law. They immediately used torture to force her to cough up the money. Preston recounted the event with a dark voice. They tied her to a pole and beat her brutally with bats. By the time the NYPD raided the motel to rescue her and execute the arrest warrant, she was half dead. More terrifyingly, the heavy blows to her face completely shattered the artificial cartilage and silicone structures beneath her skin. The flawless face that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars was totally deformed, twisted, and horrifying. The medical examiner had a very hard time stopping the bleeding and fixing her jawbone before transferring her to the precinct holding cell. The image of Victoria's arrogant, beautiful face in her stunning wedding dress flashed across my mind, now replaced by the ruined figure in Preston's story. Envy and bottomless greed had pushed Hannah from a poor but physically whole country girl into a criminal with a permanently destroyed face. The law threw her in jail to pay for her perjury, but her own borrowed vanity had punished her by stripping away the very thing she was most proud of. Now, she was sitting in a cold cell facing years in state prison. Preston reached out and grabbed my hand, transmitting a familiar warmth to soothe the tension. All your injustices have been washed away. Kevin's family is bankrupt, and he's wandering jobless. Hannah is paying the price behind bars. From now on, those ghosts of the past will never have the chance to bother our lives again. Lily, are you ready to step into a brighter new chapter? I gently squeezed Preston's strong fingers. The corners of my lips curled up, forming a radiant smile from the bottom of my heart. The humiliating past was completely closed. I looked straight into the deep, dark eyes of the man before me and answered firmly, I'm ready. I am going to use the shares you gave me to do meaningful work, to prove to the world that a poor nurse can turn herself into a phoenix without having to rely on or steal from anyone. Time flew by, like the blink of an eye. New York entered the chilly days of late winter. The streets were flooded with dazzling decorations, signaling the approaching holiday season. I stood before a large mirror in my dressing room, carefully adjusting my emerald green silk evening gown. The skinny, frail nurse wearing a frayed thrift store shirt was nowhere to be seen. The woman in the mirror now exuded confidence, radiance, and power. My long hair fell in natural, voluminous waves over my bare shoulders, paired with an exquisite diamond jewelry set personally picked out by Preston. Tonight was an incredibly important night for me. After receiving the 10% shares from Preston, I didn't use the money for personal luxury. Instead, I founded a charity called the Luminescence Foundation, dedicated to funding surgeries for impoverished cancer patients and building schools in remote, underprivileged areas. With relentless effort, my medical background, and the solid backing of Preston's influence, Luminescence quickly became one of the most prestigious charitable organizations in the country. Tonight, I was attending a gala honoring outstanding individuals who made massive contributions to society, attending as the chairwoman of the foundation. The luxury limousine stopped in front of the grand entrance of a Manhattan convention center. Preston stepped out first, gallantly offering his hand to help me out onto the red carpet. Dozens of camera flashes went off continuously, aimed right at us. Preston wore a sharp black tuxedo, his arm wrapped proudly around my waist as we walked into the magnificent, glittering hall. The eyes of the corporate elite were all focused on the powerful CEO and the woman standing beside him. The whispers were no longer filled with mocking contempt, but with admiration and deep respect. The gala was incredibly grand. After the award ceremony concluded, people began to mingle, networking and enjoying champagne. I strolled out to the massive balcony at the back of the hall to get some fresh air. I held a glass of sparkling champagne, the night wind gently blowing the silk train of my dress. Just as I was enjoying this rare moment of peace, a noisy argument from the hotel's back service door caught my attention. Get out of here. This is the hotel's dumpster area, not a hangout for beggars. A security guard yelled, mixed with the clattering of aluminum trash cans. I stepped closer to the edge of the balcony and looked down. Under the dim, flickering yellow light of a street lamp, 3 filthy, ragged people were bent over, scrambling to pick up half-eaten boxes of food the kitchen had just tossed out. A man with completely white hair, his face weathered and full of wrinkles, wearing a faded jacket, was fighting to snatch half a loaf of bread away from stray dogs. Beside him was a woman sitting in a rusted, old wheelchair, paralyzed on one side of her body, shakily reaching out her hand in waiting. The other was a young woman with matted, dirty hair, a thick, ugly scar running down her cheek, hastily stuffing leftover meat into a grimy plastic bag. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. With a strange intuition, I recognized them. Even though their ruined appearances were worlds apart from their glossy, arrogant pasts, those features were unmistakable. Kevin, Eleanor, and Mia, the illustrious Sterling family, was now living as vagrants, digging through trash and begging around large restaurants in the city. Kevin no longer had the smug look of an elite. He was just a haggard, middle-aged man fighting for scraps to survive. Eleanor, once so regal, was completely helpless in her broken wheelchair. Mia, the vicious socialite who loved to insult others, now wore a hideous scar from loan sharks, living a rat-like existence at the very bottom of society. Just then, a small, dark figure limped out of the dark alley, charging straight in and snatching the plastic bag of food right out of Mia's hands. A brawl over scraps erupted right at the base of the 5-star hotel. Kevin shoved the newcomer hard, sending her rolling onto the ground. The street lamp mercilessly illuminated the person's face. I flinched and stepped back. It was a face so deformed it barely looked human. The nose had collapsed, the jaw was crooked. The skin was wrinkled and covered in dark red, lumpy scars. Her hair was chopped haphazardly, revealing patches of bald, peeling scalp. It was Victoria, or rather, Hannah. She had just been released from prison a few days ago, on parole. After suffering revenge beatings in prison and the destruction of her plastic surgery without any money to fix it, Hannah now bore the appearance of a hideous monster, disgusted and chased away by everyone. Lily, a shrill, piercing cry rang out from below. Hannah had seen me standing on the brilliantly lit balcony. She dropped to her knees on the filthy ground, pressing her hands together and bowing frantically toward me. "Lily, please have mercy! Save me! I've been starving for days. Please give me some money for food. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry 1,000 times." Hearing my name, Kevin also looked up. His sunken eyes met my cold, indifferent gaze. He stood stunned, staring at the breathtaking, noble beauty of the ex-wife he had thrown away. A single tear rolled down Kevin's weathered face, carrying a belated remorse and an unbearable humiliation that words couldn't describe. He didn't dare open his mouth to beg. He quickly turned his face away, pulling his mother's wheelchair to hide back into the shadows. I stood perfectly still on the high balcony, looking down at the ruined forms of the people who had used every vicious tactic to destroy me. The hatred in my heart had truly, completely vanished, not because I forgave them, but because they no longer qualified to exist in my mind. I slowly set my wine glass on the stone ledge, speaking clearly and loudly enough for the woman groveling below to hear. "Hannah, you reap what you sow. You used lies to snatch wealth and glory. Now you are paying for it with a crippled body. My kindness is only for those who value life and strive to be good. My pity is never for venomous snakes. Live out the rest of your days in your own torment." With those final words, I turned my back and walked into the brightly lit hall, leaving behind the cold darkness and Hannah's miserable wails blending with the wind howling through the alley walls. Returning to the center of the party, I walked straight up to the main stage podium. Below, hundreds of distinguished guests simultaneously fell silent, looking up in anticipation. Preston sat in the front row of VIP seats, his eyes looking at me overflowing with pride and support. I adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath to regain my calm after the encounter on the balcony, and spoke with a resonant, inspiring voice that echoed across the hall. "Distinguished guests, standing on this stage of honor today, I do not consider myself an extraordinary success. I am merely a lucky woman who managed to survive the harshest storms of life. I was once a poor nurse. I experienced betrayal. I was buried under the vicious, calculating schemes of the human heart. but those very adversities taught me a precious lesson about the value of kindness. Kindness is not carelessly handing out favors to those with petty, dark hearts. Kindness must be placed in the right spot, given to the right people, like seeds planted in fertile soil to bloom into flowers that spread fragrance to the world. Our Luminescence Foundation will continue that mission, bringing rays of hope to the lives that truly need shelter. Thunderous, endless applause erupted the moment I finished speaking. I smiled, bowed to the audience, and stepped off the stage, surrounded by everyone's congratulations. The charity gala ended as a massive success. Before leaving, I stopped by the hotel's concierge desk and pulled a thick, craft paper envelope from my purse. Inside was $100,000 in cash, just enough to buy a small, rundown house in the suburbs and start a tiny convenience store. I instructed the hotel manager to take this envelope and give it to the homeless man named Kevin hiding in the back alley. This was not a reconciliation, nor was it pity. This was the final severing. This money was my repayment for the 3 years of eating Kevin's family's food, completely cutting every karmic tie to them. From now on, our paths would never cross. Whether they lived or died was none of my concern. As for Hannah, I heard the manager report back that security had chased her away. Later, a rugged, weather-beaten farmer from her hometown came to claim her. He was the man she had been arranged to marry since childhood. Even though she looked like a monster, he generously took her back to their remote Appalachian town to care for her, an ending that was perhaps the most peaceful possible for a guilty soul. Preston was waiting for me at the grand entrance. Tonight, he didn't let the chauffeur drive. He sat behind the wheel himself. The luxury car took us away from the noisy city center, driving along a tree-lined highway heading toward the quiet suburbs of Long Island. "Aren't we going back to the condo?" I asked in surprise as he turned the car into a completely unfamiliar, sprawling garden estate. "Today is a special day," Preston smiled mysteriously, turning the steering wheel and parking in front of the gate of a beautiful, vintage-style house surrounded by a garden of blooming, fragrant white roses under the moonlight. He stepped out, opened my door, took my hand, and led me into the yard. "What is this house?" I stared in awe at the gorgeous architecture before me. Preston stopped in the middle of the yard. He turned to face me. His eyes sparkled, reflecting the warm yellow light from the porch. "This is the property registered under the name Lily. This land was bought using the profits from your shares. The architectural blueprints were personally chosen by you last month, don't you remember? Today, the construction was finally completed. I wanted to bring you to the house that truly belongs to you, created by your own hard work." I was so moved I choked up, covering my mouth with my hand to stop the sobs. I truly had a home of my own, a place where I wouldn't have to endure the judging eyes of anyone. Right at that moment, the night sky over Long Island suddenly lit up. Brilliant, colorful fireworks shot up from the nearby shoreline, exploding into thousands of glittering stars falling against the dark backdrop. The scene was as magical and beautiful as a dream. Preston suddenly took a step back. Amidst the magnificent backdrop of fireworks, the most powerful man in the corporate world dropped to one knee on the lush green grass. He pulled a dark red velvet box from his breast pocket and popped it open to reveal an exquisitely crafted, sparkling diamond ring. Preston's eyes were more sincere and passionate than ever before. "Lily, 10 years ago, you saved my life. Over the past 3 years, you taught me what patience and resilience mean. I don't promise to give you the fake perfection of high society. I only promise to use the entirety of the rest of my life to protect the smile on your lips, to be the man who brings you true peace. Will you marry me? Your Nate is proposing to you." Tears of happiness streamed endlessly down my cheeks. Every storm, every trauma of my impoverished, humiliated youth had now been rewarded with this sacred moment. I nodded vigorously, reaching my trembling hand forward. "I do." I spoke softly, but it was the clearest, most fulfilling sound in the world. Preston joyfully slipped the ring onto my ring finger. He jumped up, wrapping his arms around me and lifting me off the ground, spinning me in a circle amidst the yard filled with white roses. The fireworks continued to roar in the sky, signaling a new beginning, a happy, radiant future waiting for us ahead, perfectly closing the 10-year, storm-filled weight of this aristocratic diary.